Okay, good evening, everybody. I'd like to welcome you all to tonight's Cabinet meeting. For those observing, I'm Councillor Patrick Harley, Leader of the Council, and I'll be chairing this evening's meeting. So before we begin, I'd like to cover a few housekeeping points. There's no planned fire alarms, so if the alarm does sound, just follow me. Please treat it as real and follow the instructions of staff to evacuate the building safely. Please note that this building will be recorded and will be made available on our YouTube channel. Members wishing to speak should raise their hand to indicate that they would like to contribute. And finally, please remember to use the microphones when speaking so everyone can hear clearly. Okay, so let's begin. Agenda item 1, apologies for absence.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Apologies from Councillor Kasim Mughal, Councillor Adam Aston, Councillor Shanila Mughal and Councillor Kieran Casey. He's stuck in Birmingham at the moment. Hopefully he'll arrive in time.
Okay, thank you. Any others? Oh, okay, thank you. Agenda item 2, declarations of interest. Do any members have any interest to declare under the Members' Code of Conduct? Okay, thank you, colleagues. Agenda item 3, minutes. I move that the minutes of the meeting held on the 6th of November 2025 be confirmed as a correct record and signed. Does Cabinet agree? Okay, thank you. Agenda item 4, Council Revenue Budget 26-27 and Medium Term Financial Plan 26-27 to 2030-31. Pardon me. I call on Councillor Steve Clark to present the report and move the recommendation.
Thank you, Leader. The report before us this evening sets out the draft budget for the 2026-27 financial year, along with our medium-term financial plan covering the next 4 years up to 2030-31. As Cabinet is well aware, local government continues to face significant financial challenges, and Dudley is no exception. The government is currently reviewing how funding is allocated to local authorities, and we expect to receive draft allocations in mid-December. So because of this, the budget has had to be based on a number of assumptions, and further updated report will come back to Cabinet on the 14th of January. Consultation on the budget will begin on the 15th of December, and I want to highlight several key points for Cabinet's consideration. First, this budget provides for both inflation and growth. We have built-in pay awards, contractual inflation, and funding to meet growing demand. Particularly in some of our statutory services, we continue to see rising costs and rising demand, especially for children's placement. In total, 6 million has been allocated for inflation and 18 million has been allocated for growth. The growth includes funding to reopen two children's homes, increase investment in our in-house foster carers so that we can reduce reliance on more expensive private sector placements, and investment in reablement services for adults. As members know, every council has a statutory duty to set a budget that is balanced. And for next year, we have identified £3.5 million worth of new savings. And these are efficiency savings, meaning that we are doing the same or more for less, rather than cuts to our services. These come on top of the £7.6 million of savings already built into the 2025-26, and which will increase in 26-27. Even with these savings, there remains a shortfall of £4.5 million in 2026, rising to £35.3 million by 2030-31. And these figures already assume income from a 4.99% increase in council tax. As the report sets out, there are several key pieces of information to come which will feed into the updated budget position. Whilst not yet finalised, we expect these to be sufficient to close the remaining gap. And at this stage, we do not anticipate the need to identify further savings. However, our focus must also be on the long term. The financial gap grows significantly over the medium term and could widen further if demand excesses our forecasts. Transforming our services will be essential to our future financial sustainability. We are already looking at how we can support further transformation, building on the investments I have already mentioned. The report also touches on the dedicated schools grant and the housing revenue account. DSG allocations have yet to be announced, although the government has indicated that it intends to take on the funding of SEND from 2028 to 2029, when the statutory override ends. And this will help manage some of the risks relating to cumulative deficits beyond that point, although we still have no detail on how any deficits build up after then will be treated. Turning to the HRA, proposals for rent increases will come to Cabinet in January. Rent increases are linked to the September CPI plus 1%, which gives a figure of 4.8% for 2026-27. And we are still awaiting information on rent convergence, and this will be included in the final reports in January. Finally, the budget includes planned contributions of £5 million per year to build our reserves. This will increase from £43.3 million at the start of this financial year to £61.2 million by the end of 2030 and 31. This is an important step in strengthening the Council's overall financial resilience and addressing concerns raised in the best value notice. Cabinet is therefore asked this evening to agree the recommendations and that are set out in this report, and I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Is there a seconder?
Yes, sir. Seconded, Leader.
Glad you didn't call me Mr. Mayor. Does anyone wish to speak on this item? Okay, so I've got Shaukat first. Anyone else? Okay, so Councillor Shaukat Ali.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Whilst Councillor Clark presents a positive narrative, I think it's important that we are completely honest with ourselves and with the public. When we dig deeper and look at the budget critically, yes, the headline position appears positive on the surface. There remain deep structural and long-term risks that cannot be ignored. I mean, firstly, the balanced position for 26-27 is built on a number of assumptions, some of which you have alluded to. The national funding settlement, we don't know how that's going to fare. Pension contribution rates, ongoing capital finance reviews. So a shift in any of these could reopen the budget almost immediately. So, massive risks. While the next year's gaps stand at 4.5 million, the medium-term outlook is significantly concerning. I mean, by 2030-31, the gap increases or is projected to rise to 35 million. And then in terms of the growth pattern, it suggests a cliff edge after 26-27. and it's based on an assumption that pressures will reduce, and we know pressures aren't reducing in terms of social services and children's care. The investment in 2 new children's homes we welcome. And however, we can't assume that the savings will appear automatically. The market remains unpredictable. Inflation in placements remains high at 5%, and demand is rising. The budget also is heavily reliant on maximum council tax increases every single year of the medium-term financial plan. And then the transformation program, which is mentioned and identified as something which will bring about sustainability, is still in development. The funding, the business cases and the timelines are not yet confirmed, so massive risks there. Now, whilst the report does show progress, I think it's important to refrain from giving an impression that the financial position is secure. I don't think that is. It is stabilizing, but it remains very fragile. And one shock, could end us into the situation where we were in. One undelivered saving could reopen the deficit, and one increase in demand, we're away from an overspend. So I think it's really important that we tread cautiously as we're moving along. Thank you, Chair.
If I get Councillor Jackie Cowling, Councillor Kathy Baton in there, let you respond. Okay.
Could I respond to that one first of all, please, Chair? Because there's quite a lot
If you prefer,
in that one, if that'd be all right, and then
Yeah,
I can
fine.
just do the 2 individually. So you're quite right. What we are waiting for is a settlement, and there are many assumptions that are being made in this report. But what this report is, it's a snapshot of where we are today. And so as we can't tell what the settlement will be in December, we have some ideas of what it may be, and that the report has to be based on the figures that we have in front of us as from today. So the January council meeting should give us a far, far better idea of exactly where we are by the end of the year. But if you look back onto where we've come from, when we were literally talking about reserves of £6 million, we've now got that up to £43.3 million. You are right, the transformation that we are doing needs to be handled with care and precision, and we need to make sure that the total operating model works, which it seems to be doing so far. But by January, we should have a far clearer picture of the total settlements that are going to be coming our way from the government at the moment. And the bit that concerns me there is that the DSG, which it's great that the government are going to be taking that on. I don't know how they're going to do it yet, because it's going to cost them a hell of a lot of money. We don't know what's going to happen with the money that we've already accrued up until then, which is a concern for us, and we'll need to find out more. Whether we have to actually use that and capitalise it, I don't know. But hopefully we'll have more information from the government within the new year. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Steve. Councillor Cowell, and then Councillor Baton, and then Councillor Ridney.
Yeah, thanks, Leader. It's just a quick technical point, to be honest. Got a frog in my throat. Just in terms of the Cabinet in January, it appears to me that will be followed by full council, and the Cabinet will approve the HRA rent increase, and then we'll basically cross the corridor and go to council. Now, that was done last year. If that's what's going to happen again this year, then I don't think that's good enough really in terms of governance. It doesn't allow for any consideration of any issues that come up in Cabinet. I may be wrong about the date, but it is usually the prior Cabinet to the full budget, and that would make it the 29th. So I just have some concerns about the date. Thanks, Chair.
Just through you, Chair, happy to take into consideration the actual timetable. The timetable has been previously approved. It does allow, from a governance perspective, that scrutiny to be undertaken, and thereafter the debate to be taken at full council and thereafter approved.
Yeah, Cathy Jones is online, but if I can just come in, and Lisa may want to come in. My understanding is that the Housing and Asset Scrutiny Committee will consider the HRA budget on the 15th of January, and then the paper will go at the end of January to allow bills to be printed. So I think scrutiny is built in before that. That's why that scrutiny goes first. I've got that right, haven't I, Lisa?
Yeah, you're right. So there is the opportunity for scrutiny in mid-January to consider the HRA rent increases. The decision itself goes on the 29th of January. That's what's scheduled, but there is a real opportunity for that scrutiny to happen before then.
Very quickly, because I think your queries and concerns have really been answered.
Well, they have, but I think my concern is the answer. I mean, we've only done it last year. That was the first time that was done. There used to be a gap between Cabinet and Council. That is something that's fairly new, and I just don't think it's right.
Okay. Point taken, but I think there's an appropriate level of scrutiny that's in place here for the HRA. Councillor Baton, then Councillor Ridley.
Thank you, Leader. So my question is on 6.11, communities and growth, where you've outlined the additional cost of the for the simpler recycling and food waste. If my memory serves me correctly, and it doesn't very often, we'd had 4 million, I think, from government. Was it under New Burdens funding for waste and recycling to get ready for this particular programme? So I suppose my question is, the way the report is written, is that 4.05 million the total cost? What have we already had from government, and what is the actual cost to Dudley, please?
Lisa?
Yeah, so I can't tell you the total cost, if I'm being honest. The 4.05 million is new growth that's being built in, and there's detail of that set out later on in the appendix in the report. With different funding that comes in, some of that is grant funding that we're able to carry forward from one year to the next, and we're using that to the maximum effect. But we can definitely come back with a fuller response on that point, if that would be helpful.
Yes, please. If you can detail what money came in from government. I think we had it about 18 months ago for this particular rollout. So what money came in from government? What's the cost of the rollout? Therefore, what's the burden on Dudley, please?
Okay, we'll look into that.
Thank you. What I can clarify, I think we'll come back with a fuller response, because there's quite a lot involved in that, and it's not as straightforward necessarily as those monies put in plus the money going out. What I can clarify is we have had 6.2 million, which is extended producer responsibility funding. That was through there. We also did have New Burdens funding as well. But what we'll do is we'll document that within the full report. I believe it's been to Cabinet beforehand, so I'll just recirculate that to you in the morning.
Councillor Ridley?
Thank you, Leader. I haven't got a criticism, just to welcome the money that's going to be invested in the children's homes, because that is something that we, all elected members of the council, have been asking, that more of our children are kept in the borough and not sent to high-cost places outside, although we do accept that there will be some children that is needed. Also, I'd like to just say as well, that's the following paragraph where it announces that, then talks about cost reductions for external residential places. I don't think we're going to see any cost reductions there in the coming future. Everything seems to be rising. But I do also welcome the additional funding for additional internal fostering capacity. I think something Wayne and I have been indulging in to encourage, but we encourage anybody, if you're fed up, foster. I'm looking at you as well, everybody. If you want to foster, please feel free. Come to Dudley. We will welcome you, train you, support you, and put some more money in to help you. So just to say, well done with that. We welcome it very much. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for those comments, Councillor Ridley, much appreciated. And there has always been a level of cross-party cooperation on children's services. Is the recommendation set out in paragraph 2 of the report agreed? Okay, thank you. That is carried. Agenda item 5, policy approval, corporate complaints. I call on Councillor Ed Lawrence to present the report and move the recommendations.
Thank you, Chair. The agenda item today is to approve a revised complaints policy to be launched on the 1st of April next year. The revised policy aligns with a new code of complaints handling launched by the Local Government and Social Care Ombudsman, who govern complaints handling in local government through the Local Government Act. Some of the key changes for us are, I won't go through them all, but some of the key ones are the new code will align with the Housing Ombudsman, because they're two separate complaints procedures at the moment. We're going to have a new definition for actually what is a complaint. The big one, the new target to respond to stage 1 complaints within 10 working days. That currently sits at 20 working days. We're going to have more formal governance and monitoring of complaints at a strategic member level with revised KPIs. And there's going to be a requirement for lessons learned on all complaints. And the council every year must produce a self-assessment and publish it on our own website to demonstrate the performance and those lessons learned. So obviously the most demanding aspect is the reduction in working days for responses. Currently, statistics show that we currently respond to about 40 to 50% of stage 1 complaints within 10 days. A policy that complies with the new code must be published by the 1st of April next year, and the new code applied throughout 26-27. This will be monitored and reported through the corporate performance framework. So I propose that the first point of compliance with the LGSCO, it's easy for you to say, is the new policy, and therefore that it's approved in readiness to publish at the end of this financial year. And I'm assured that a project steering group has been established in order to deliver the policy and the code requirements. So I formally move the recommendations in the report.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Lawrence. Is there a seconder?
Seconded, Leader.
Okay, thank you. Anyone wish to speak on this? Okay, go on. Sorry, Councillor Baton.
Thank you. I mean, I have no issue with whatever time frame you set, as long as it's met. Yeah, my issue at the moment is we can't meet 20 days, and if we can't meet 20 days, how on earth are we going to meet 10? So I think I'd want assurances that you have either... no, I appreciate that you are doing some work around what constitutes a complaint, so that will change and that may be refined, so we may not see quite as many going through. But I think we absolutely have to have the assurances that the timeframes are realistic, that they can be met, and that it's consistent. I've got somebody at the moment who haven't even had an acknowledgement to a complaint that was issued in middle of October. So, we're way out of... So have we increased the team? Are we going to be increasing the people who are dealing with those complaints in order to get them through the system quicker?
Yeah, it is a massive task. So that's why we're setting up the working group to look at it as a whole project, how we manage those complaints coming through currently and how we'll need to do it if we're going to meet that target. We've got 12 months. We have to adopt this policy this year, and then we've got the 12 months to put the system into place, and then we can self-reflect. We do have the ability to re-establish what a complaint is. So if someone hasn't contacted the council before, we're not going to class that as a complaint. But what I don't want that to do is to push back, first responses to those. So there is a big job, probably will need some more resource, but the steering group is being set up. And once we know what the policy is, which we've got to adopt by the 1st of April, then obviously we can put plans in place.
Thank you. I mean, I think if it's a 12-month project, if we can perhaps have a report back at just before the halfway stage, so we can see how that work is going and if we are meeting those timeframes.
Yeah, I believe they're going to be in the KPIs that go to scrutiny anyway, so we'll pick it up through that.
Okay, thank you, councillors. Councillor Sahota and then Councillor Kell.
Thank you, Leader. Obviously, just want to sort of follow on to what my colleague Cathy has said, obviously, so I won't go through that same kind of sort of concerns. I think my concern also is, Leader, is clearly under finance and HR. If we're going to be having a new team that's going to deliver more complaints within a stricter timeline, we need to ensure that the complaints team is fit for purpose in terms of resources and finance, and that's one question. And I think the other question is basically there's also executive team that's overseeing the whole process. It'd be good to know the composition of that executive team in terms of what their role is and how they're going to sort of monitor it. And also, like Cathy said, we'd welcome a 6-month update on how we're getting on. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I think the first question had been answered, that Councillor Lawrence had alluded to. There would have to be more resource put into this. Obviously, the board will be set up, and I'm sure that as opposition councillors, you'll play a role in that, because something like this has to be cross-party for it to fully work. Councillor Kell.
Yeah, thanks, Leader. Just following on in terms of the 10 days, 20 days, it actually suggests at paragraph 3.7, the response is 10 working days after the acknowledgement, which is 5 working days. Now, I might not be a mathematical genius, but I make that 15. So I'm just wondering sort of whether it is 15 or whether it's 10. And just something to note, looking at page 64, paragraph 1.4, I did actually click on that link and it looks more like it's an internal SharePoint thing, whereas I'm assuming the policy itself is meant to be a public document, so I just wondered whether that was something that perhaps needed a bit of tidying up. Thanks, Leader.
Councillor Lawrence.
Yeah, so the 10 days is to get that completed response back from the first stage. The SharePoint site, I'll have to have a look at that. I don't think this document will be, well, it'll be on the Cabinet papers, but we're adopting it tonight.
I thought the actual idea was that ultimately this would be a public document. And just in terms of the 10 days, so are we saying it's 15 or are we saying it's 10? Because I think currently it's 20 all the way through, isn't it? It's not 25. So...
Yeah, I'll just refer to my colleague behind me if he can just clarify that point for us.
Thank you. So the guidelines is 10 days. I think we just need to clarify that position around the additional 5 days. But my sense of reading the LGSO guideline is that it is 10 days, that we must go back to the complainant within 10 working days.
Okay. But very quickly, Jackie, because
yeah, just say if we can just have that clarification, and thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are the recommendations set out in paragraph 2 of the report agreed? Okay, thank you. That is carried. Agenda item 6, Plan for Neighbourhoods, Regeneration and Investment Plans. I call on Councillor Simon Phibbs to present the report and move the recommendations.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. Thank you very much. Just to give a little bit of background to anybody that isn't already familiar, the Plan for Neighbourhoods is the former longer-term plan for towns. The government have actually changed the name again, but we are sticking to Plan for Neighbourhoods because that is the brand in which we've built up confidence with people in the public that have actually engaged with us so far. The project is £20 million over 10 years, and that is to be managed by a board. The board has been put together and has representatives, including Councillor Ali from the opposition, and also members of Parliament and people from the community volunteers, business people, and so on and so forth. This is to essentially move us to the next stage and submit the investment plan to government and the regeneration priorities that have been identified by the board through the engagement that has taken place so far. There's been a huge amount of work put into this in quite a very short period of time, not just by the board members and its chair, Neil, but mainly by the guys that work in the Regen team that have been able to put this together at very short notice. So the details can be found within the report in terms of the priorities and the investment plan, but just to reconfirm that this isn't really Dudley Council's money to spend. This is actually for that board to decide what the priorities are and how that money will be spent in order to meet those priorities. So the Cabinet decision really is to sign off the submission of that and then continue with the Section 151 officer as the accountable body responsible for the funds, but to continue working with that board to be able to deliver the plan going forward. So yeah, hopefully that's a bit of background for everybody, and happy to take any questions that might come forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Simon. Do we have a seconder?
Seconded, Leader.
Does anyone wish to speak on this agenda item? Shaukat?
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Chair. I welcome the plan and the £20 million government funding that's attached with that, as well as the £600,000 capacity funding that is received, as well as the council is supporting it through its offices. And I see the plan as a beginning of a 10-year journey that has been and is being shaped by residents, our partners, and our shared ambition to build a stronger, more confident neighbourhoods. And the report, you will see that more than 2,000 people contributed to the development of the plan through community researches, surveys, events and conversations. And like Councillor Phipps, I want to add my thanks to the Neighbourhood Board, the commitment of our community researchers, the dedication of our officers who have worked so hard, particularly 2 officers, I'll name them, Emma Atkins is one and Zoe, to bring us to this point. I think without their help and support, I think we would have struggled. And I see the plan as a vehicle for partnership working and a catalyst for attracting further investment to make a real and lasting difference in our neighbourhoods. And I myself, and I'm sure Councillor Phipps, look forward to seeing the impact it will deliver for communities over the coming years. And can, for transparency also, can you please add both our declarations of interest, although we don't need to declare them, but just for transparency. Both of us sit on the board. Thank you.
Councillor Sahota, then Councillor Kell.
Thank you, Leader. Obviously, I also welcome the progress being made. Obviously, I think myself was involved in the initial bit with Councillor Bradley, and I did raise some concerns about governance and local ownership. And since then, I think there's been a lot of good progress being made in terms of how the board has sort of developed itself, and also the hard work being done by the officers. So it's good work. I've had to print them off because I haven't got my yellow book and have a good read, but it's good progress. And thank you, everybody.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Sahota. Councillor Kell?
Yeah, thanks, Leader. Just looking for a little bit of clarification, to be honest. The appendix itself, page 19, where it references Quarry Bank and Dudley Wood, it talks about glass making. Now, from my knowledge and from talking to a few people as well, I think that probably should be chain making rather than glass making. In terms of sort of page 26, there's reference to the primary area of focus being Wrensness, Netherton and Dudley Town Centre so far. Page 28 talks about Netherton, and that refers to salt wells and chain making correctly. But what I just want to know is whether that section refers to Netherton, the place, which includes the sort of Netherton end of my ward, or whether it's focused on the Netherton ward. It's just a little bit of clarification there, please.
Yeah, your proofreading skills continue to impress everybody, Councillor Cowell. I'm pretty much sure it would be chain making that it should refer to. We can always pick that up and just make sure that's probably changed, because I'm not familiar with much glass making historically on Quarry Bank, But also, I am not an expert on local history, so I'll let the experts decide that one. And yes, it does try and refer to places rather than wards. It's been, because the Plan for Neighbourhoods area has been quite, it's been defined by government, and we're able to make minor changes. So we've been able to bring certain green spaces into the area so that we can fund projects within those green spaces, for instance. But in reality, if you look at one end of that area and compare it to the other end, there isn't huge amounts of similarities. So there has been an effort to try and make sure that, despite the fact that there are very different places and very different needs in the area, it does reflect each individual locality rather than sticking to local government wards and things like that. So you're right in pointing that out, and there will be. I'll have to double check and everything, but I know there'll be differences between the Dudley Wood end, which I think is primarily included, and further away in the ward. So those have also got to be picked up as well. So it wasn't easy to refer to wards. So that's why the localities really have been included.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Nobody else? No. Okay. Are the recommendations set out in paragraph 2 of the report agreed? Okay, thank you. That is carried. Agenda item 7. Environmental Sustainability Action Plan Annual Update 2025. Again, I call on Councillor Ed Lawrence to present the report and move the recommendations.
Thank you, Chair. The report before you today provides an annual update on the work carried out by the Council on the Environmental Sustainability Action Plan. Over the past 12 months, the Council has made significant progress across a wide range of projects, which of course are detailed in the report and action plan. I won't go through every one of them, but I would like to highlight 3 big achievements from the team, those made even more significant by the fact that they were completely funded by external sources. The first of those, at last year's annual update to Cabinet, members expressed a strong desire to hear directly from the young people of the borough on this particular item. I'm pleased to say that we delivered a Sustainable Futures Youth Conference for secondary age students from schools across the borough. That took place in here a few weeks ago, and it was a really great success. So, we hope to build on that. Again, that didn't cost the council anything. It was funded through a third party. Secondly, most of our buildings in the borough currently rely on natural gas for heating. And obviously, with the price of gas remaining volatile, it's created a challenge for not only the council, but also residents and local businesses. So we want ideas to try and reduce those costs for ourselves, for our residents and businesses. And we've started to explore a potential heat network zone for the borough. So we're in the early stages. We've got the funding to have a look at whether that will be viable or not. So that, could be a really good project. And then thirdly, just to tell you about the Solar Together scheme. This initiative supports households, small businesses and community groups in the borough to become more energy independent, offering access to lower cost solar panels, batteries, EV chargers, that sort of thing. It's like a group buying power. So we've managed to get a number of residents onto that scheme, and people are taking advantage of that. Also pleased to report that our overall carbon emissions have fallen by 17% in the last year. The decrease is largely a result of rationalising the council estate and improvements to energy efficiency, across our electricity use, street lighting in particular, and heating. To maintain this momentum, we're going to continue to keep the action plan under constant review, as well as identifying new initiatives and new funding opportunities to ensure that we can, keep that progress ongoing. Taken together, these updates make it clear that we are continuing our commitment to a cleaner environment, opening new doors of opportunity for our communities, and helping residents and the council alike save money through initiatives and practical measures. So I move the recommendations in the report.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Lawrence. Do we have a seconder?
Yes, Leader. Seconded.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone wish to speak on this item? Councillor Raleigh.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just two observations. The first one on the West Midlands Combined Authority ADAPT project, which is a piece of research programmed through the Birmingham University, I think about £2 million to collect regional understanding of climate change adaptation. Now, I welcome the project, but through this report, I've learned that St Thomas's was one of the wards selected where this research was going to be taking place alongside Brierley Hill and Wordsley. They're the three areas where this research will be undertaken. And the St Thomas's World Cafe was held on the 18th of July. And again, whilst I haven't got any problem with DY1, it's not in St Thomas's. It could have been held in Sledmere Community Centre, for example, or another venue in the ward. It would have been helpful. And I don't believe that any of my ward colleagues were advised or indeed invited to attend this cafe, World Cafe. So my plea on initiatives such as this, I think it's important to involve and invite local members for their knowledge and input into the research or into shaping an idea or an initiative. I think it's really important. So just an observation on that one. And the second one is in relation to the trial of cross-pavement charging for electrical vehicle owners. I think that's really good news, and particularly for residents without drives who want to switch to electrical vehicles. I mean, one of my constituents approached me a number of years ago about this, and I was told at that time that we're working on it. So I think it'll be really good to hear if that trial has started, if so, which areas, and if it hasn't started, that there is kind of fair access across the different neighbourhoods. And if it has started, then are there any kind of early indications or outcomes on that? That would be really helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So on your first point, I'll take your point on the location, but I believe that all councillors were contacted regarding that. So whether that's slipped through the net, I don't know, but we can double check on that for you. And then I think Councillor Phipps wanted to come in on the charges.
Yeah, I was just trying to find the briefing notes so I could give you the exact details, but essentially I was presented with a decision which was signed off to begin the trial. It was with people who had previously expressed an interest. So it was with people not necessarily based on where they live, but whether they'd got in touch with the council and contacted us to say they would like to do that. And then their locations were assessed to see if it would be suitable for such a trial. I was trying to find the briefing note to get the exact dates of when it was started, but it come to me too quickly. So if you want that information, we can try and get it to you afterwards, if that's all right.
Thank you, councillors. Councillor Cobb and then Councillor Baton.
Thank you, Leader. So my question is about paragraph 18 under finance. The paragraph says where funding cannot be obtained or does not get covered in its entirety from existing budgets, the plans are removed. How large is the risk that some of these plans are going to be removed because the funding cannot be found?
So the team have been prioritising obviously where we can get external funding, because they haven't had any funding from the council so far, but we are looking at that because we think this is a requirement to help us, save money, put new technology into place. So they will prioritise where they can get external funding to get the projects going, but that's not to say we're scrapping anything. We are, desperately looking for those funds to make sure they can go ahead if they're worthwhile.
It isn't really a question, I suppose. It's more a word of caution around. So when we're talking about rationalising our council estates, basically mean by selling off our buildings, which then improves our own carbon footprint and the data that's collected. Those buildings then go into private sector, private hands, who will then do what they choose to do with them, which is more likely to be turning them into accommodation. The carbon footprint is more than likely going to go up. So whilst the council's is going down, and that is obviously to be welcomed, and it is an improvement. It's kind of a bit of a false accounting, because ours is coming down while then the private sector's ends up going up. So it was just to make that point, really. But overall, to welcome the report and to say I think the team has done an amazing job when we've had no core funding from the council for it. I think they've done a fantastic job in getting in the funds that they have. So broadly welcome, but with a word of caution.
Yeah, and I'd agree with what you've said about the team. You know, it's only a very small team, and but potentially what they can achieve is huge, and that's why we need to put some funds in, and we need to be reducing that carbon footprint, you know, by putting solar panels, batteries, that, you know, the new technologies and schemes that we can do. So I agree.
Are the recommendations as set out in paragraph 2 of the report agreed? Okay, thank you, colleagues. That is carried. And agenda item 8, to report on any issues arising from scrutiny committees. Do any of the scrutiny committee chairs in attendance have any issues they wish to raise at this point? There are no questions to be considered under Cabinet Procedure Rule 2.5, and there is no further business. So that concludes this meeting of the Cabinet. Thank you all for attending. It would be remiss of me not to say, hope everybody has a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. This is the last Cabinet before then.